the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
"40 of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge?" This is the most competitive iRacing World Championship. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Supercup.
They say she changes when the sun goes down. Welcome to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and welcome to this, the third race meeting of the Porsche Esports Supercup, here live on the iRacing Esports Network and on RaceSpot TV. It's Will Vincent filling in for Paul Smith here today, who's a little bit croaky on the voice, joined as ever by Connery Maddock as we're into the twilight hours, almost here at Spa. The sun is going down, and of course that means that the track and air temperatures are getting cooler and cooler. Practice is currently underway. By the time we get ourselves into our main feature race, it will be dark, and that will mean that the track conditions will change dramatically, and the car's handling will change dramatically as well. It's pretty humid here today at Francorchamps, Belgium, with 77% humidity and wind speeds of about 11 kilometers an hour. Connery, what that does mean is we are set for another entertaining race day here in the Porsche Esports Supercup.
Another week, another iRacing Porsche Esports Supercup round, and I am very, very excited to get this one going, Will. It's at Spa. It's one of the most legendary racetracks on any motorsport calendar you can ever think of. And to have, going towards 40 of these Porsches racing around this particular circuit with the amount of room that it gives you to do those battles as well, I think this is going to be absolutely fantastic indeed.
Some beautiful panoramic shots then of this Spa-Francorchamps racetrack, as we are about 6 minutes away from getting ourselves into the 8-minute qualifying session. Connery, the first things first in terms of qualifying, unlike Barber Motorsports Park, unlike at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, these drivers will not have the opportunity to give up on that first run and go again. They have got to be on it. So if they mess up their first lap, they will not have a banker lap.
And you have to remember here, Will, that messing up a lap here at Spa is incredibly, incredibly easy with how quickly you can get yourself an instant point for just stepping out of line on your qualifying lap. As soon as you get that off track, that is your lap time invalid for qualifying. So you do have to be very, very careful indeed. So I wouldn't be surprised here if we see a good couple of drivers actually not set themselves qualifying times because of the instant points picked up across their qualifying laps. But those that are able to get a qualifying lap in, and more importantly, fast and cleanly, then they'll be starting pretty well in terms of that first sprint race. But of course, you do have to consider that we do have the reverse grid from qualifying. Top 8 get inverted. We've got points for qualifying as well to make it a little bit more worthwhile to get yourself in towards those top positions. But I think this is just going to be a case here, Will, from discussing with a couple of the drivers beforehand. When it comes to that race, it's basically going to be Joshua Rogers versus the rest.
Yeah, but one thing that is worth noting, you talk about incidents, let's go from one set of incidents to another set of incidents. And you mentioned Joshua Rogers. As you know, Porsche take a very detailed look at this series along with iRacing, and they really want to make sure there is clean racing the same way they would do in the real-life Supercup. And Josh Rogers right now is tied for the highest number of incident points accrued in post-race penalties of all active drivers, along, I believe, with teammate Marty Piatella. And that means that if Joshua Rogers gets 2 more incident points over the course of the season, he will start accruing penalties from race control.
Yes, he will, and that's one of the things he just has to be careful about. If you look at the championship point standings, then you'll see, yes, he has a pretty comfortable points buffer at the front of the field so far this season, but if he just picks up these penalties here and there while he's trying to work his way back up from a P8 or P7 on the grid in the sprint race, for example, then that is going to be a huge point of contention for him, and might see him slide down the order somewhat. But with how strong he's been over the first couple of rounds in the season, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem for him.
Yeah, there are the championship standings as they stand right now, and it is Joshua Rogers who leads with 260 points over Jared Filsell with 171. Martin Kroenke now in a two-way tie for third place with Sebastian Job. And we've got to talk about Martin Kroenke because it was a class of defensive driving that took place at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course that propelled him up into that third place.
Yeah, it was definitely incredible to see. You could just witness that Joshua Rogers trying to find his way through at any point around that Mid-Ohio Sports Car circuit, which is a pretty tough track to overtake at the best of times. But when you have a multiple-time champion of iRacing World Championships in front of you, then that it just complicates things even further. I felt like Joshua Rogers throughout that race weekend was the faster of the two drivers, but Kroenke, when it mattered, was able to put up the brick wall in defense from his teammates. So we'll have to see if this is the case again here coming into this one.
Yeah, hopefully today Joshua Rogers will be looking to tear some form of a wall down, but we've got other drivers there in the mix as well. Sebastian Job in 4th place and Jared Filsell. Well, both Filsell and Job have been victims of circumstances so far this season. That's why Joshua Rogers has got such a commanding lead in this championship. I think both Filsell and Job today just want to get themselves at least 2 podiums. And I remember we were talking yesterday, Connery, about, sometimes you don't have to fight for every position. I think for Filsell and Job, they've got to have that in the back of their mind, that we still got a very long way to go in this championship, and sometimes trying to force an issue, trying to push too hard to try and close a gap might actually do more harm than good.
You've got a good few drivers out there with a similar story as well. Drivers that we would consider actually being big favourites coming into this particular series haven't really had the best start to the season. The likes of Maximilian Benecke, we've had Mitchell de Jong. He's currently down in 5th place in the point standings right now. So I think Sebastian Job, de Jong, we've got Benecke, maybe Graham Carroll as well, just wanting to get themselves podiums here, like you said, to make sure that they're starting to get their season back on a good track. And what better way to start it than here at Spa?
Yeah, and of course you've got David Williams running 6th place in the championship, Jamie Fluke in 7th, Jeremy Bouteloup in 8th place, Patrick Holtzman 9th, and then could you imagine after 2 rounds saying this, Max Benecke, Connery, 124 points in 10th place after what a dominant year he had in 2018.
Yeah, he was basically one of the elite drivers, at least in terms of GT driving over the past year or so here on iRacing, but so far in this Porsche Esports Super Cup, he hasn't really had that much of an impact. He's currently 4th place position in practice right now, so the times are starting to come together here for Maximilian Benecke, but when it comes to race time, then he's always been the one that's sort of been caught up into these little incidents here and there. Don't forget, when battling for the race lead at round 1, he got punted off by none other than Fredrik Rasmussen. So he's had a terrible, terrible start to the season, but he's got to get himself back into the mindset now that he can recover from this bad start.
Practice is over. That means it is time for qualifying. Let's say normally this will be the time that I'd hand over to my good friend Paul Smith, but he's not feeling so good today. He's got himself a little bit of a croaky voice, so he's very kindly handed the reins over to me for the entire broadcast here today. But yeah, practice is over, qualifying is underway, and now it is a time of seeing just how much raw speed these drivers have. They have, as ever, 2 timed laps to go as fast as they possibly can around this Spa-Francorchamps racetrack. And we put the track conditions back up here, Connery. It's the track temp's gone down by a degree already since we've been on air.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just going to be a theme throughout the rest of this particular session as we go deeper and deeper into the night. And, well, almost all your drivers right now are actually on their out laps, not wanting to wait around for the first few lap times to come in before going out there so that they have a target to try and reach. Because of the long lap time here, they're wanting to get out early and just at least set a bank lap here.
Yeah, indeed. So drivers are filing themselves all onto the racetrack. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about Co-Anda SimSport so far this season. I do want to pay attention to the driver who was one of the fastest in the world last year on iRacing. That was Max Benecke, as he's currently working himself through that long 180-degree right-hander down at Rivage into Jackie Ick's corner, formerly known as, well, Connery, Speaker's Corner, No Name Corner. Some other people gave it a name at some point.
I know for sure we gave it a name at some point, but yeah, officially Jackie Ick's corner now into Pouhon. You can just see the last remnants of the sunlight starting to dip below the hills here in Belgium as Maximilian Benecke heads his way towards the Lafania chicane on his outlap. And it's important in these Porsches to get the tires up to temperature, but of course on this outlap you don't want to do that too much and push too much, because otherwise you'll start to overheat them coming onto your flying lap. So you do have to be a little bit careful here going towards the end of the lap, and then you can go 110% when it comes to that start finish line. Of course, we are using the Grand Prix pits here in this series, so the start finish line is where you're used to seeing it in things like the Formula 1 series, so that is not going to be a problem. But Maximilian Benecke heading his way up towards Blanchimont, shifting down for that one, down into 5th before he heads his way towards the bus stop chicane, and then he can get his flying lap started.
Yep, so 5 minutes, 20 seconds remaining in qualifying. You're not likely to see drivers pull off to the side of the racetrack and have another go. They are committed to it. Benecke then is going to start a lap. We're going to ride this one on board with him, and we're going to keep you up to date with everything else that is going on in terms of qualifying on the left-hand side of your screen as well. But you can see it's currently just about 20 seconds now into that lap, and he comes to the first real tricky part. It's Air Rouge, it's Radio. It's not as scary as it used to be back in the late 1990s, and well, far previously before then, when they used to have a gravel track, but now it's all asphalt. That will help in the race, but in qualifying you go off, and well, that lap is invalidated anyway. You're going to get your first split time coming up soon then for Max Benecke. We're just going to turn it back over. 45 seconds now into the lap through Lacombe, the right, the left, and then it's that right again through Malmedy, and then it's that short little run down towards Rivage. And so far, this is what I meant by that term banker lap, Connery, because it doesn't look so fast, but Benecke, like many people know, first things first, I need to get onto the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, he just went through one of the corners where it's very easy to get that 1x. Just on the exit of Jackie's corner, no-name corner, whatever you want to call it. That's particularly vicious if you run a little bit too wide there. The iRacing system giving you a 1x, but he seems to have been able to avoid any instance so far. Still continuing on his way up towards Lafania then. Just drags that car in, hugging that white line on the inside before he changes target for the apex of the second part of that particular complex, and then he heads his way in towards turn 14, turn 15, the Stavalos. Gotta be careful on the exit once again here. You can't really dip too tight into the gravel there. You're playing with instant points, you're playing with actually losing control of the car as well. But now it should be a clean run for Beneke here all the way to the end as he heads through Bonchemont.
Yeah, we're getting word in that Kroenke's on a lap that's about a tenth of a second faster. The first of the times are coming through. Rogers 2:20, 1:15. We're going to pick up his second lap in just one moment's time because Max Beneke is now heading himself in towards that right and that left for the bus stop chicane. He's going to complete his time. He's not going to go fastest by our projections. He's going to do a time of 2:20.3, and that will put him fourth for the time being. But there's still a lot of way to go on here. We've got ourselves on a lap, both Mitchell de Jong, who's just heading himself through the bus stop chicane right about now. He's looking to try and go fastest as he heads himself now down towards the start-finish line. 2:20.2, not fast enough to go to pole. He does, however, move up into third place. Kroenke's lap put him into the sixth position, just to let you know. But let's turn our attention then over to the driver of Josh Rogers. He heads himself now down in towards Rivage, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic lap there as a banker for Joshua Rogers, and I wouldn't put it past him to actually go faster on this second lap. Absolutely crazy driver behind the wheel of that Coanda car, and credit where credit's due though. Jamie Fluke up into P2, only 1.5 tenths of a second slower than the leader in qualifying right now. That's a fantastic performance for him in this first phase of qualifying, but now the second phase is underway. The second flying lap's about to come in, and, well, can anyone at all in this field remove Joshua Rogers from that first spot?
Yeah, of course. First place in qualifying will mean with the inverted grid, he will go to 8th position. He'll have to race himself through the field. It's worth noting, by the way, that Kroenke and Job shared a lap time. Kroenke got it to the 10,000th of a second. Graham Carroll in the number 21 Red Bull Racing Esports car was only 100th of a second behind the two of them. So the gaps from about P4 to P10 are absolutely minuscule right now. You've got yourself almost 8 drivers separated by 1/10 of a second. But here's Rogers then. Can he improve on that 2:20.115 as he exits himself now out of that final bus stop chicane, past the line, 2:20 dead. Absolutely fantastic. It's actually showing up as a 2:19.981 for Joshua Rogers, so he does go fastest, and he's joined on the front row by Martin Kroenke. I was about to have a look at Graham Carroll. He does not improve, so he falls down into 10th place. We've got 4 drivers yet to have set a lap. Kemal Franchak, Marcus Jensen, Kazuki Machine. We're actually now down to 3 drivers. We're looking at Marcus Jensen, who is one of them, in the Burst Esports car as he heads himself out of the bus stop chicane now, down towards the start-finish line. He gets in a 2:20.7. That puts him on the grid. I don't think Umashima's not going to get into the field, Connery.
Oh, last minute there, you just saw Mitchell de Jong just solidify himself inside that top 3 in qualifying, just getting himself a couple more bonus points. We also had a late qualifying charge from Martin Kroenke up to P2 in qualifying, but we do have to remind everyone, this is just for points here in qualifying. The top 8 do get reversed, so we'll get ourselves all gridded up here for the first sprint race of this edition of the Porsche Esports Supercup.
Yeah, indeed. So let's run yourself then through your starting grid. And it's an inverse starting grid, of course, your top 8. Patrick Holtzman, Red Bull Racing Esports team, gets himself pole position. Tommy Erskard, second place for VRS, Coanda Sim Sports. Jamie Fluke in third place for the Apex Racing team. Then fourth place will go to Sebastian Job. 5th place, Max Benecke. 6th place, Mitchell de Jong. 7th place will go to Martin Kroenke. 8th to Joshua Rogers. And from there on back, you'll see Alexander Thieb in 9th place and Graham Carroll rounds out your top 10. The remainder of those results are going to come up on your screen for you right now. 35 drivers have entered into today's event. Connery, before we head ourselves to the green flag here at Spa, final thoughts.
Fingers crossed that we get a little bit of a better rate of attrition on the first lap, especially when it comes to the start of these events. It has been pretty questionable with some of the driving that has gone on the first lap here for the past 2 weeks that we've run this series. But I think due to this being Spa, it's a track that pretty much everyone and their mother knows. It also is more suited to side-by-side racing than some of the other tracks that we've had on the calendar so far. I think this will be a little bit better than what we've seen previous.
Yep, so the drivers are now headed on to that starting grid. We are waiting for the last few of them before we are ready to go. Green flag racing for what will be a 15-minute race here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Patrick Holtzman, front row then. There you can see your grid are assembled. We are green for 15 minutes here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. The cars all storm themselves down towards La Source for the first time here. You've got side-by-side up front. Tommy Erskard was looking for that pass, and actually going off wide is Patrick Holtzman. This could create a huge mess as they head themselves in towards Rouge and Radillon for the first time. But what is going to happen as they work themselves up the hill? It looks pretty clean for the first few drivers, and now it's just a case of who is going to get the best of the draft as they head themselves down towards Le Combe. But Patrick Holtzman has got the run, and behind them all stacking up, Connery.
Oh, they're going 3 wide for P2. It's Sebastian Job on the outside line. We've got the car of Jamie Fluke in the middle there. We've got Tommy Oscar also fighting for position, heading their way through Le Combe. Fantastic battling for the final podium positions here. Oscar still going side by side with Fluke. They almost touched doors on the way down to Ravage, and now in the background, Benecke is getting himself involved as well. 2 by 2, like Noah's Ark down into Ravage. There's a bit of door barging there as Fluke gets pushed out towards the outside through no-name corner. They're still side by side behind Mitchell de Jong and Sebastian Job, but they all survive.
They do survive. We've got big trouble behind, though. That's a Black Star Racing car that's been involved in that. That is Thomas Tutela involved, but we're going to keep the action out front, because what I wanted to talk about is because of all that side-by-side battling, we've already got a 1.7 second advantage from P1 Patrick Holtzman to Tommy Erskard et al. In the main pack. But we're on board right now with Max Benecke. He's already started flashing the headlights. And there's one other thing that's worth noting as well. For the first time, I think all season long, Joshua Rogers has lost positions at the start. He's lost out. He's now behind Graham Carroll. He's had a fantastic start to this event. So Joshua Rogers, for the first time this season, Connery, is going backwards.
Yeah, that is a bit of a storyline change that we weren't expecting, just getting caught up in the battles early on and losing out. But look, they're just playing with fire in terms of the track limits there on the exit of Blanchemont. Here comes Benecke, move for P2 then in towards the bus stop, battling with the car of Tommy Ostgaard. He's trapped on the outside. I might get freight trained on the inside here. That's Benecke gaining the position, but Jamie Fluke is looking to get both of them on the way down towards La Source. Ostgaard's not going to give up the fight as he looks on the middle line, coming through the hairpin. Benecke solidly ahead, had a bit of a troubling moment in the traction zone there, but everyone stacked up nose to tail on the run down towards Eau Rouge.
Yeah, indeed. So lap number 2 then here at Spa. Already we've completed almost 3 minutes of this motor race. Drivers involved in incident early on. Antoine Hichler, Niels Koch and Yao Vaz as they work themselves now back towards Le Combe once again. Let's go on board. Yeah, we've got ourselves on board from the Erskard, and there is Sebastian Job looking to the outside. Oh, look at the contact there as well. And that's going to create a huge moment there. And that is one driver, Alexander Thieb, and Benecke. It is Benecke who's involved in that one. So Max Benecke has had himself another moment this season, and he just cannot catch a break. Let's get the replay up and show you what happened here to Max Benecke. This is all coming down the hill from the rear here of Max Benecke. comes in. It all starts when he just gets a little bit of contact, as it all started, I think, with Sebastian Job, and it just escalated from there, Connery.
Well, Sebastian Job went into the side of Jamie Fluke a little bit, then Jamie Fluke make further contact with Maxime Beneke on the brakes down in towards Lacombe, so that is my particular assessment of that situation. It does mean, once again, we were talking about this in the pre-show, well, Maxime Beneke not having a great start to any of these races so far, and it seems like that theme's going to continue here in this one. You'll have to try and search for something come the feature race. Well, try to finish well in the sprint race first and foremost to get yourself the grid position, but still, it's going to be another race from behind from Maxime Beneke. Patrick Holtzman has pretty much checked out in terms of the front of this field. He has a 2.5 second gap over the cars behind. It actually extends up to 3.2 seconds just as I'm talking about this. So he has a huge amount of clean track ahead and behind him to take this sprint race win. But the podium positions up behind, those are definitely undecided.
Yeah, we're on board Sebastian Job. It could well be a Red Bull Racing Esports double podium if you're able to get himself here. Could well be a Red Bull Racing Esports double podium if Sebastian Job could just get himself up one more position. But it's worth noting behind, you've got battles going on. Jared Filsell, who came into this race second place in the championship, has been battling it out with Ricardo Castrolado. This is the battle going on for 12th place on track. It looks as though that Filsell is going to try and make the move, and that's going to be big contact there for Ricardo Castrolado out of the event. But further forward, Joshua Rogers has got up to 6th place, but he's got his teammate just ahead of him on Mitchell de Jong. Can the two Coanda drivers now start working together here, Connery?
Well, they have to if they want to gain any significant points for this sprint race and have themselves a good grid position for that 30-minute feature race. Down into Boravage this time, you can see how stacked up this battle is for the final couple of podium positions. It's Jamie Fluke at the front of this train trying to break away, and he does have a decent buffer back towards Tommy Erstgaard there. Sort of second in line in the train, but it's Sebastian Job here right in the middle with VRS kind of Simsport cars all around him. It's a bit of a sketchy situation for the British driver here.
Yeah, and he's got his teammate about 4 seconds up the road from this, so Sebastian Job, he's gonna have to play his cards carefully. Remember what I said earlier on, sometimes it is better to just keep a position rather than trying to force an issue to move forward. That might be running in the ears for Sebastian Job right now after he's had a bit of an up and down start to this Porsche Esports Supercup campaign. Let's show you a top 8 very quickly as we can finally catch a breath. It's Patrick Holtzman leading by 3.2 seconds over Jamie Fluke. Tommy Erskard in 3rd, Sebastian Job in 4th, Mitchell de Jong in the 5th position, Joshua Rogers in 6th, Graham Carroll 7th, and Alexander Thebe rounds out your top 8 right now. As just having a look through, Alexander Thebe there is running in that 8th position, but Graham Carroll, he's had a good start to this race. He's had some pretty good starts overall, but he's got himself some damage to that front right of his race car.
Yeah, that's not exactly going to help him in the aerodynamics department, that's for sure. Straight line speed affected, balance of the car perhaps in some of the higher speed corners affected by that one as well, and you have to be careful of the suspension and wheel damage as well in these cars. So it's going to be an interesting situation from this point forwards from Graham Carroll, but it seems like there's still a relatively good amount of pace in that car. He's actually running lap times faster than Alexander Thebe behind him, so I don't think that damage is impeding him all that much here. Just riding on board here with the car of Mitchell de Jong as he tries to lock onto the back of the Brit in front of him. That's Sebastian Job, but the American can't make any progress up towards Lacombe this time around. But, well, this is a sprint race. You do have to be making these moves early. You can't just sit and wait for all too long.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that the finishing order for this race will determine the starting order for the next race here. So it is worth noting that if you do manage to get the positions here, it will make your life easier when you get into the featured race. So right now it would be the driver Patrick Holtzman who is going to be on pole position for race number 2, then Fluke, then Erskard, etc. et al. But we go and we continue to have a look, and actually Joshua Rogers is just stalking, I would say, Mitchell Mitchell de Jong right now, trying to get him to make the move. Behind, you've got the British driver of Peter Berryman for Apex Racing Team closing up to the rear of the German driver of Alexander Thieb in the Pure Racing Team number 28 car. And also, what I love from this on board, you can really start seeing the fact that the sun is disappearing behind the mountains.
Yeah, darkness is soon approaching here in this round of the Border Esports Super Cup, heading their way through Curva Paul Frere 10-15 of this circuit. Important to maximize your exit out of there. It benefits you all on the run all the way down to Blanchimont, and we might be seeing a move for P3 soon, because we do have Sebastian Job that's sort of positioning himself for the launch out of Blanchimont, and here he comes actually, if we can get a view of this one. Down towards the bus stop, here comes Sebastian Job, outbraking move on the outside line. If you get this right, you have the inside for the second apex, but he's overcooked it a little bit too much. Now door to door, literally so, with Mitchell de Jong as they almost get in a tangle off of the bus stop. Across the line then, they'll take this battle all the way down towards the last source hairpin. Sebastian Job still on the outside, and that de Jong almost door banging again on that inside line. Still door to door on the run down the hill towards Eau Rouge. Who's going to back out first?
Well, let's have a look as they come down in towards Eau Rouge, and it's going to be staying side by side all the way up the hill, and it's going to be Sebastian Job wiggling, and they're going 3 wide, 2 of them off track, and Sebastian Job, I think, was just getting out of the gas pedal. He's going to lose a position as a consequence of that one, but that was mighty, mighty scary. I want to get ourselves another look at this as we go 3 wide in towards Lecombe, but they go 2 wide. It's fine, it's fine. Mitchell de Jong, though, versus Graham Carroll, they are still going to continue to battle, so we're not going to get that replay of Sebastian Job, unfortunately, but it's de Jong and Carroll and Rogers in there in the mix as well, and Rogers is battling for P number 6. They work themselves down in towards Ravage, and they continue to go 2 wide as they 2 deep almost. This pack are not giving an inch as they come into the Jackie Hicks corner. Rubbing is racing, it seems to be, all of a sudden as they work towards Pouin. It is Sebastian Job is able to hold on from Rogers, and now Rogers got Alexander Thieb and Peter Berryman right on their back tail.
Oh, what a battle here in the middle of the top 10, but it's going to be someone spinning in the background. That's Peter Berryman looping it out of Pouin after contact with one of the other drivers. It didn't quite catch that one, that incident that has involved Peter Berryman there, but I think this is still not going to be the end of the battle in the middle of the top 10, well, because we do have Joshua Rogers still in the fight. He did lose a good couple of positions in that little frac car at the top of Eau Rouge and heading down the Kemmel Straight. But the thing is, with 2 laps to go, next time they head their way across the line, you can see there's a little bit of damage to the front end of Joshua Rogers' car. That might neuter him somewhat, but he has 2 Red Bull Esports drivers ahead of him that he might be able to do something about. He had a bit of a look previously, but look at that. That's going to be Sebastian Job pushing wide through Blanchimont. That's going to compromise his lap time a little bit and allow Rogers to lock onto the back of them once again.
Yeah, so the top 8 has changed. Holtzman, though, continues to lead the way. Tommy Erskard right now is in 3rd place in that number 1 car, hunting Jamie Fluke, and it looks as though that these 2 drivers are pretty safe for a podium because of the fact that Mitchell de Jong, 2.3 seconds behind him, has got a ton of drivers behind. He's got Graham Carroll and Sebastian Job. Job falling down from 3rd place all the way down into 6th position. But then you've now got Joshua Rogers putting the pressure on Sebastian Job as they head themselves up the hill once again. Rogers has got some damage to the right-hand side of that car. I don't know who that was involved with, but Rogers, of course, has got to be careful. He cannot make the big, bold moves, because if he does any more, he will start incurring penalties in future races. And we saw a switch there almost, Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll, but it seems to be that you've got the 2 Red Bull Racing Esports drivers probably just thinking, okay, what can we do to get to Mitchell de Jong in the 2 laps we've got remaining?
Yeah, that possibly would be the plan, but there's also a point situation to be concerned about here. Sebastian Job doing better in the standings than Graham Carroll, so that might have been negotiated for that particular reason as well. It's surprising we see team orders this early on in the championship, but there we go. We also have the case that Carroll does have quite a bit of damage to that car that might be slowing him down, so I think the more likely option here, Will, is that they've just released Sebastian Job, not for points reasons, but because Graham Carroll is not getting the maximum out of the car as a result of the damage that he has.
Yep, Joshua Rogers, he had a little half look into the final chicane that last time by, couldn't do anything as they now come down into Stavolo. And now they're going to have one lap remaining in this, the first of our 2 races here today. So don't go anywhere after the checkered flag, ladies and gentlemen, because afterwards, about 5 minutes after the checkered flag, we immediately head ourselves into a second, longer, 30-minute feature race here, where the winner will come out $1,000 richer thanks to Porsche and iRacing. Here comes Josh Rogers along the outside as they come into the bus stop chicane. They beat wheels a little bit again as they come on the exit of the corner. Rogers looks as though he's going to get better traction, but he will have to go around the outside potentially as they come down in towards that first corner for the final time. Lassours on the inside line will go to Sebastian Job as they work themselves again side by side on the exit of the corner. And now it's going to be a case one more time for Job. How many times? He's going to let him through. He's going to let Joshua Rogers through, though, I was going to say, because the last time that Sebastian Job went too wide into our Rouge Radial, he ended up losing a boatload of positions. It's going to be a case now, though, of can Graham Carroll get himself through? It's all kicking off here. It was Graham Carroll, sorry, with Rogers. I was saying it all wrong.
Here comes Sedgwick.
But Sedgwick is on the outside here.
Yep, down in towards Lacombe, looking for a line through there, but Cedric can't work his way through just yet. He's just been sitting back a little bit, letting these guys fight, and on the final lap of this race, Cedric now in the position to try and make up positions, and he looks to the outside line coming through Ravage, a bit of a wider entry, carrying more mid-corner speed, but he can't carry that all the way through to the exit because of Carroll being slow on the inside of the corner. This is just allowing Joshua Rogers to get away, so Jack Cedric is basically being Rogers' best friends in this situation.
He is. I'm just keeping an eye out on Tommy Erskine versus Jamie Fluke for the last lap of this motor race as they head themselves in towards that long sweeping Farnley chicane for the final time in this sprint race. The gap is about 0.3 per second between them. Behind, we can still see that Sedgwick and Carroll are fighting. That has allowed Rogers to get clear by a couple of tenths of a second. Meanwhile, Patrick Holtzman is about to head himself in towards Stavolo. We will keep you updated with what happens behind, but the moment belongs for the time being to Patrick Holtzman as he heads himself then through Stavolo for the final time in the sprint race and in towards the bus stop chicane. The winner of your heat race will be the Red Bull Racing Esports team driver, the German of Patrick Holtzman. Behind, it's going to be Jamie Fluke coming home in second place. Right on his tail at the end was Tommy Erskine. Fourth place, Mitchell de Jong. Fifth place, Sebastian Job. Rogers in sixth, Graham Carroll seventh, and Jack Sedgwick is going to round out your top eight. So no last lap passes inside of your top 10. So it all kind of cooled itself down at the very end of it. But Patrick Holtzman claiming victory here in the sprint race, and that's a great start for the German and also the Red Bull Racing Esports team, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic for Holtzman indeed. Had a little bit of a mixed bag of a race of the first 2 races, of this season, but he's finally able to clinch himself a sprint race win here. And this one, Jamie Fluke finishing on that second step of the podium, Tommy Erstgaard in P3. So a fantastic result, arguably, for all 3 of those drivers, but slightly disappointing for Rogers. I know he gets himself put in this situation because he's so damn quick in qualifying, but that's just the risk you run with having to try and work your way back up through the field in that sort of situation. But what a fight for P3 and back, though. That was absolutely crazy stuff. It was very close, but it was clean for the most part.
It was indeed. Let's have ourselves a look through then the race results from your sprint race here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. And it was Patrick Holtzman for the Red Bull Racing Esports team who claimed victory, a dominant margin actually, of 3.2 seconds over Jamie Fluke and the Apex Racing team car. Tommy Erskine in third place, Mitchell de Jong in fourth for Co-Anderson Sports, and Sebastian Job rounds out the top 5 again for Red Bull Racing Esports. Commander Simsports and Josh Rogers, well, he was in the wars. He was as low down as P number 9, but finishes in P6 with damage. Battled it out with Graham Carroll in the latter stages of the race. Carroll ends up coming home in 7th place after previously giving a position away to his teammate. Jack Sedgwick in 8th place for Supercup in iRacing. Pure Racing Team in the 9th place, and that's Alexander Thiebe and Gregor Hutu, Team Redline, rounds out your top 10. 11th place will go to Jared Filsell. He came in today into the championship in 2nd place. He finishes 11th place for the Apex Racing Team. MSI Esports, their highest placed driver, Alejandro Sanchez from Spain. Jeremy Bootsloop and that Frenchman came home 13th for Commander Simsports. Commander Simsports also P number 14, the American of Bobby Zelensky, and the Greek driver Apash Gurgis. Max Beneke finishes P number 16 after another early race incident. Kevin Ellis Jr., Marcus Jensen, Peter Berriman, and Marty Piatella round out your top 20. There is the remainder of the results up on your screen. And well, Connery, now we head ourselves into a 30-minute feature race. And as I said before, $1,000 on the line.
Yeah, $1,000 for getting yourself a feature race win, and it's going to be Patrick Holtzman on pole position once again for it. But the question for him is it going to be as easy for him to break away from the rest of the field as it was in the sprint race? The only reason why he broke away in the sprint race is because everyone was trying to battle side by side, every which way, everywhere on the circuit behind him, and he was left unchallenged at the front of the field. If Jamie Fluke or Tommy Østgaard gets a good start here, then he might be in a world of hurt and he might drop back.
Okay, so we've got ourselves about 2.5 minutes before we head ourselves down to the starting grid for our second race here this afternoon. I tell you what, that was a fantastic first race that we were thinking about, but there are some drivers here, Connery, who are thinking, what do I need to do to catch myself a bit of a break?
Are you talking about Beneke by any chance?
Beneke, a couple of others along the way, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We also had Phil Sell with early issues as well, so it's not an ideal situation for many drivers out there here today. But Beneke starting P16 for this one. That one's going to be a tough one to take on the chin, considering his performance so far this season. And as I said at the top of the broadcast, he was one of the favorites coming into this one, but can't seem to get things going. And I think for this race, best case scenario, he ends up finishing inside of that top 10. I would say that is a job well done, but it could have been so much more. And, he has to just be perhaps a little bit more careful when it comes to the opening couple of laps of a sprint race, for example, where everyone is fighting around you. Everyone's being very frantic indeed. But at the same, the other side of the coin is that if you're passive on the first few laps of a sprint race, then you're just going to be losing track position. So it's really hard to strike that balance between being aggressive and also race conservation as well.
Let's get ourselves ready then for our feature race here. And here's your starting grid for this. The feature 30-minute race, $1,000 on the line to your winner. And it will be Patrick Holtzman who starts on that front row of the grid here. So just having a little bit, there we are. Patrick Holtzman, front row of the grid. Jamie Fluke finished about 3 behind him in that first race. And then row number 2 is going to be Tommy Østgaard and Mitchell de Jong, all Commander Simsports. Row 3, Sebastian Job and Joshua Rogers. Expect fireworks between the two of them in towards the first couple of corners. Then Graham Carroll, Jack Sedgwick in row 4. Row number 5, Alexander Thiebe and Gregor Hutu. Row 6, Jared Filsell, Alejandro Sanchez. Row 7 will be Jeremy Bootsloop and Bobby Zelensky, as we are going to get ourselves ready then for racing in our second race here today. Those lights are about to go on the gantry and we are going to be ready to go racing. The lights are flashing on the number 49 car or Jamie Fluke already, but we are set. Lights are on all of the cars. Lights are off on the gantry. We are racing for the second time now here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and this time, of course, it's far darker. These drivers are going to have more grip on their tyres. That might make them a bit more bold. We've got one Commander driver way off early. That's the number 24 car of Mitchell de Jong, but as they head themselves down in towards Air Rouge Radio for the first time, it's going to be a case, I think, a little bit calmer. We hope here, Connery, as they head themselves up the hill.
Let's have a little bit of a look. All single file coming onto the Camel Straight, at least initially, but here comes the move for P2 then. Jamie Fluke versus the car of what is going to be Tommy Erstgaard on the way down towards Le Courbe. Battle of the late breakers into here. Erstgaard on the inside becomes the outside for the second apex, but can he hold on? He does hold on for Malmedy, but the thing is, Fluke was looking for a bit of a cutback move down towards Rivage, and now Sebastian Job is looking for the outside. You can see him on the left-hand side of your picture. Job so heavy on the brakes around the outside of the 180-degree right downhill right-hander, and that's Job getting the position in towards No Name as well. Fantastic move from the Brit.
Yeah, good early start then for the British driver. Sebastian Job works himself back up into the podium. He was seeking in the sprint race here, as it has been pretty calm. We've had four drivers out. Kemal Franchak, Niels Koos, Jel Vaz, and Pat Gergis here earlier on. There's lots of battling going on, by the way, down in the mid-pack as well. Jared Filsell and Gregor Hutu have been going at it, but I want to go and I want to have a look on board with the driver of Mitchell de Jong as they head themselves out of this corner, because Mitchell de Jong started off, of course, on row number 2, Connery. He's fallen down into the 6th place. He's got his teammate Josh Rogers behind, who of course came into this leading the championship, as Max Benekes also had himself a good run up 4 places. But I'm wondering whether de Jong might just let his teammate through at some point early on here.
We'll have to wait and see into the bus stop. A little bit of a look at a couple of moves in the line ahead of cars ahead of him, but no one going to commit to an early move down into the bus stop this time around. You can be a little bit more conservative here on the first couple of laps of the feature race, not so much when it comes to that sprint race. Here comes Rogers then, making a move over his teammate. That's Mitchell de Jong on the outside, has to be defending. There's a bit of a situation ahead of them as well, as the Jamie Fluke has to push wide in the battle with Graham Carroll. But the two teammates then down side by side towards Eau Rouge, they thought better of it, and that is the sensible decision.
Wasn't, in my opinion, a team order. It was a case of, okay, you've got the line, take the corner, because otherwise the two would have had a tremendous accident. But actually, de Jong's coming back here. As de Jong's coming back and just having a look at positions. Rogers coming back, yeah, as they head themselves in towards Le Courbe, and it's going to be de Jong. And actually, that's a slide there from Graham Carroll. That's going to bunch his field right back up. He kind of messed up into Le Courbe, and this is going to allow Jamie Fluke to almost get alongside him. They're all going to stack up 3 wide as they head themselves now down in towards Rivage once again. It's that number 24 machine of Mitchell de Jong, who's ahead again of his teammate, who's going to just try and force the issue of Jamie Fluke, but wasn't close enough there through the centre of Rivage.
Yeah, Fluke was looking for the move into Le Courbe over Graham Carroll, wasn't able to successfully complete it that time, but into Pouon now, the double left-hander all the way down the hill. A fantastic roller coaster of a section, it has to be said. In any car you decide to work your way around this Spa racetrack. One of my favourite sections of corners in terms of the entire motorsport calendar. That one is for sure, but in towards Lefania, everyone's still line astern, all single file, all the way down to the last couple of positions here in this race. So people taking things a little bit more calmly here in the opening couple of laps as the battles start to fizzle out a little bit, at least coming towards the middle and towards the end of this particular lap. But no doubt they'll start back up again once we get towards the bus stop, and then of course towards La Source for the 3rd time in this race.
Patrick Holtzman continues to hold the lead of this motor race by 0.8 of a second over Tommy Jørsgaard as they'll complete their second lap here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps in the feature. So far, it's been Patrick Holtzman who has led pretty much every single lap of this race meeting, it's worth noting, as Sebastian Job sets the fastest lap of the day so far in terms of this race. He's actually pretty close now to the rear of Tommy Jørsgaard. They head themselves down towards a Rouge Radio once again. The gap is currently 0.4 of a second. I don't think he's going to be close enough as they get up the top of the hill, but behind De Jong and Rogers again so close together, and Rogers is just trying to find a way past yet another Koana teammate. He's got the inside line this time by. I was going to say last time around it was Rogers trying to spend the entire race getting past Martin Kroenke. Today it's him trying to get past another teammate, Mitchell De Jong. He's got the inside line in towards Lecombe, and will he be able to complete the pass this time by through the right-hander into left of Malmedy, and finally Josh Rogers gets past a teammate.
Does Mitchell De Jong decide to reply down towards Rivage? It is a defensive line here from Joshua Rodgers into that right-hander. He's able to hold position just for now. They're side-by-side behind them. This is Gregor Hutu and Maximilian Benecke right in the back of your picture, heading away side-by-side. There's more side-by-side between Jensen and Berryman, which is up on your screen for you now, at least the rear of those two battle packs there. So quite a few changes of position going on just inside your top 10 here. But everyone seems to have survived so far. I'm just having a little bit of a look back towards Maximilian Benecke, because at the end of that sprint race, I said he has to try and make up positions here in this feature race, and that is exactly what he's done so far. He's up 4 positions, which is a great start when you consider that we've only had about coming over 5 minutes of this race done already. So he has a couple more cars on the cards as well to try and get past. He's currently stuck behind Gregor Hutu, but then you've also got Phil Sell, Cedric Thie, De Jong all in a line ahead of him. So it's potentially, I wouldn't say easy pickings for Maximilian Benecke, but the potential is there for him to get himself a good couple of points from this race still. Yeah, I'm just having a look.
It was Marcus Jensen who had a moment down in towards Pouin a couple of moments ago. Max Benecke, he's not quite close enough to make the pass happen then over Gregor Hutu as they get themselves on the exit of the bus stop chicane to start another lap here at Spa. Sebastian Job, he's close about half of a 10th of a second, shall we say, over Tommy Jørsgaard. So he's making inroads, but nothing that magical just yet. I think the saving grace of Tommy Jørsgaard right now is the fact that he's still in the toe of Patrick Holtzman, Connie. As soon as Holtzman kind of breaks that toe, I think Sebastian Job's going to find it far easier to close up to the rear of that number 1 Norwegian Koana Sports driver.
Looks like the gap sitting around about 0.4 of a second between P2 and P3 right now. Oscar and Job as they head their way into the braking zone for Lecombe. It does seem that Job is closing up bit by bit by bit here. There's a battle further back though that we've just caught the end of there. That's Gregor Hutu versus Maximilian Benecke, and look how frustrated Maximilian Benecke is. It's the universal driver signal of please get out of my way.
I think you take the word please out of that, and I think you're completely correct. It's get out of my way now. And they were side by side as they headed up the hill. Hutu, he's been a master at that corner over the years. I've seen so many times when he's been on the outside line and managed to make it work. He's a master of the Lecombe complex, and very few people has ever been able to get past him over the years of the iRacing World Championship. And well, Hutu's running in 11th place right now. He's got himself Max Benecke behind him in 12th, Bobby Zelensky 13th, Jeremy Bootlik 14th, and Alejandro Sanchez there in the MSI Esports car, rounding out your top 15. Just to give you an update, by the way, you've had Ilka Happana and Darren Narkowski, who've both been on towards pit road with some form of issues. Niels Koch, Pas Gergis, Kamal Franczak, and Yao Vaz are all classified for the time being as out of the race. I want to talk about Jared Filsell. We talked about his frustration so far here today, Connery. He's in 10th place, a bit like Max Benecke. He's been on a recovery mode drive pretty much all day long. But right now, Jared Filsell is looking about 0.3 of a second behind Cedric. Cedric, in turn, is looking to try and get past Alexander Thebe.
Top 10 still all stacked up by all means. You can just see that on the picture they have on your screen now. Same with the vast majority of the rest in the midfield as well. So these guys going to be battling perhaps very closely coming towards the end of this race, but we still have 20 minutes to go in this one. Beneke still not able to make a move over Hutu just yet, and Hutu's doing a fantastic job trying to defend this one. It does mean that he is actually losing track of the likes of Philcell and Cedric ahead of him. So if Beneke wants to move himself further up those final finishing results, then he's going to have to get a move on pretty quickly and dispose of Hutu as fast as possible if he wants to keep himself locked onto the back of the train ahead. He gets a very good run out of Radion, so he looks on the move. Perhaps around the outside, he's forced to go in towards Lecum. Hutu to taking the defensive inside line, but if that Pure Racing Team car can hold it around the outside, and it's a pretty easy pass on the inside of the second apex. And now there's Bobby Zelensky in the background trying to work his way through as well. That was a compromised line from Hutu, but Zelensky almost capitalized on it. But the thing is, Hutu, using that experience, he does hold position.
Yeah, it was a great run there for Max Beneke as we now look from the rear of him as he just works himself through the Jackie X corner. Those you're wondering, it is no longer no name corner, it is the Jackie X corner, and you're right, there's Bobby Zelensky as he was looking to try and make the move over Gregor Hutu. It looks like Hutu got a bit rattled there with that pass. It's taken him a couple of corners to settle that Team Red Line car just back down on the American driver Bobby Zelensky. Well, he knows what it's like to look for opportunities where there almost are none through what he does, of course, running in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series.
Yeah, of course, can bring the experience over to this side of racing. Not a very foreign concept is side-by-side, door-to-door racing to Bobby Zelensky as a result of that. So definitely not going to be afraid of what's on the cards here in this Porsche Esports Supercup. It was actually Hutu flashing lights that time on the way down towards Blanchimont, despite no one really being close enough ahead of him to be able to see that one. But riding on board with Sebastian Job as he tries to track down Tommy Østgaard in P2 here for this particular race. And Tommy Østgaard, well, he has had a pretty busy week indeed. Of course, Porsche are running a bit of a Norwegian championship as well, and he's managed to qualify himself into the finals for that one, where they actually get to drive real-life Porsches around a racetrack in Norway. So he's also been focusing on that and this championship as well, but it seems like it hasn't really affected him.
Yep, Tommy Østgaard, he's had a fantastic run. Of course, a lot of seat time he's had as a consequence in these Porsches, as there's a potential run now for Sebastian Job, who's going to work themselves down towards the Lecom complex again. Defensive line being taken. Sebastian Job goes, okay, I'll try and go around the outside. Can I break any later? The answer to that question is no, he can't get alongside right now. Behind though, Jamie Fluke and Josh Rogers, they're going side by side for it, and Rogers not able to get the move done just yet, but we go on board of him. He gets a fantastic run out of Malmedy. This will give him the outside line in towards Ravage. This could be the opportunity then for Rogers to try and overtake. He can hold it around the outside. He gets the inside line into the Jackie X corner, which is tight. It does favour the inside line, and it looks as though that because, yeah, Fluke just went a little bit wide, he's actually lost position as well to the driver of Mitchell de Jong. What I did just want to talk about is the updated championship points after qualifying and our first race, Connery, because Josh Rogers has got 298 points, and Sebastian Job 198, Jared Philcell 190. The top three have all had some form of issues, but Jamie Fluke's gone up into fourth place, and it's a bit of a change right now. But the key thing to note is everyone in the top three didn't really have the greatest of races.
Yeah, absolutely. So that does mean if the race finishes as it is right now, well, those points won't be in effect. That's just after the qualifying and after race one here. It would mean, though, that Josh Rogers is going to have his lead eaten into a little bit by the likes of Sebastian Job, for example. So after qualifying in race one, the point standings, of course, separated by 100 points. That's the same amount as you get for a feature race win in this series. So it looks like at this stage, with 15 minutes remaining, that Sebastian Job might be able to bring that margin in a little bit closer and to basically ruin the one feature race gap that Rogers has at the front of the field right now.
Yeah, riding on board of Alejandro Sanchez in the MSI Esports car, the Spanish driver. We don't really get to see that much of this MSI Esports team, which is a shame because it's one of my favourite liveries actually. Just in the wave of Coanda and Pure and Red Bull Racing Esports, it's nice to see a very unique colour scheme as we see in that number 47 car. But he's putting the pressure on Jeremy Boothly, but hasn't really been able to do anything. He's going to cut away from him and go on board with Jack Sedgwick as he looks then to try and make a pass over Alexander Thebe as they work themselves now in towards Lacombe once again. Jack Sedgwick outside line taken by him. The two make contact as they work themselves for the first part. They stay side by side for the second part. And again, it's going to be Sedgwick trying to take the outside line from Malmedy to set up a pass maybe in towards. He's actually got the pass complete already in towards Ravage there. So he's passed Alexander Thebe. And Thebe again, a driver who's not had a great season and who's almost played around a bit like a ping pong ball there.
I mean, he's back into what is going to be number 9 now, so that is actually exactly where he started in this feature race. So not moving forward, not moving backwards. For some drivers, that's usually the plan. Of course, if you start in the mid-pack here and you feel like you should be in the position that you are, but yeah, Thebe just struggling to hold on to a top 10 finish here. Phil Sell's going to be the next driver that's sort of hounding the rear bumper of that Porsche, and gap within 0.2 of a second. Phil Sell being one of those drivers that is kind of out of position at this stage, so a lot of pace behind the wheel of that car. But the thing is, Thebe already has had to be on the defense, so he's used to this sort of situation, but can he keep Phil Sell behind him is the big question.
Yeah, we go back on board with Jared Phil Sell then. As we do so, your top 8 as it stands, it is Patrick Holtzman who leads the way by half a second over Tommy Erskard. Erskard's got closer, but he's not been able to do anything just yet. Sebastian Job 3rd place, Graham Carroll in 4th, Josh Rogers in 5th, Mitchell de Jong, Jamie Fluke and Jack Sedgwick round out your top 8. I do want to go and have a look at Josh Rogers. Actually, no, I want to look at Tommy Erskard. That's what we want to look at because he's in a bit of a Red Bull Racing Esports sandwich right now. You try saying that 10 times in a row, Connery, but Tommy Erskard is trying to get closer. He's half of a second behind as they work themselves up the hill. But as we have a look at the lap gaps, it will show us that he's been starting to gain 0.2 of a second that last time round the racetrack.
Yeah, solidly within that slipstream now is Tommy Erskard. You can see he's flashing the lights already, just letting Patrick Holtzman know that he is there. He's getting ready for a race lead challenge, either at the end of this lap or coming into the next couple of laps here. So Erskard definitely the driver that's on a charge right now. Sebastian Job behind him has actually been matching him in terms of the lap times here. So at least Patrick Holtzman has a friend to try and harass the back of Erskard as Erskard tries to apply pressure on your race leader. So all 3 podium positions all stacked up together. There's also, of course, that battle between the car of Graham Carroll and Joshua Rogers for P4 and P5 as well. So the Brit versus the Australian on the way down towards Pouon, and Rogers trying to recover some points from this race. Of course, it wasn't the best of sprint races for him because he struggled to make his way through the field. This feature race has been a little bit better in that respect, but still not ideal if he wants to run away with a championship. So Rogers, this next position now might make him feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, indeed. So as the lights again are flashing for Josh Rogers as they work themselves through stubble, I would say that it's great to see Graham Carroll involved in so many battles in this series so far. Graham Carroll is such a talented driver, the Scotsman, but we didn't get to see much of him in the World Championship Grand Prix Series over the last couple of years. Josh Rogers is almost alongside by the time they even get in towards Blanchimont. Look at that one, but the thing is, it's single file through Blanchimont, and now Rogers' momentum's almost bulk. He's going to have to go around the outside in towards the bus stop chicane. What's going to happen here as they come into the corner? They are side by side. Are they going to make contact? The odds stat is no, but they're going to stay side by side at the exit of the corner. Graham Carroll does get the better run. He looks as though he will probably be clear by the time they get themselves in towards that first corner. But meanwhile, Sebastian Job, you're right, he's got himself past Tommy Erskard. And what a wiggle between them.
A big wiggle for Sebastian Job. It's a drag race down towards Eau Rouge once again, but it looks like Tommy Oster's going to come out on top of that one. Side by side behind as well between the cars of Rogers and Carroll, and they all squirrely through there. Rogers somehow holds it together, but the thing is, everything is now stacked up behind these guys. We're going to go 3 wide down the Camel Straight. Jamie Fluke looking to get himself involved every which way as well. Mitchell de Jong on the outside, Carroll in the middle, and it's going to be Rogers on the inside. Rogers backs out, makes it 2 by 2 between Carroll and de Jong, and that's Carroll punted towards the outside of Lecombe. It collects a car behind of Jared Filsell, and more drivers are getting involved.
Yeah, so Graham Carroll is trying to be cautious, shall we say. Look at that. They're still waiting to try and find their way back onto the racetrack, and they make... Oh, come on, Graham. You can do better than that one, my friend. But we get ourselves another look at this one, because it's been a crazy minute, and it all started around here with Sebastian Job and Tommy Erskard. But then immediately, if we go back, we can see 2 wide as they head themselves up the hill. This was between Josh Rogers and Graham Carroll, but from then on, it was pretty much pandemonium between these drivers, and that's also involving Mitchell de Jong there in the mix as well. You can see they're 3 wide as they head themselves down in towards Lecombe, and I want to see where the contact comes here, because this could be really crucial in terms of the championship. And actually, it was de Jong who was involved in the contact there with Graham Carroll, not Joshua Rogers. That is really important to note, Connery, because of the fact that, as we talked about earlier, Joshua Rogers is only 1 punterino, shall we say, away from getting himself into a situation where he's going to get penalties.
Did you just drop a Jimmy Broadbent reference in the middle of a iRacing World Championship race? Is that what you just did? But there we go. I do agree with you, though. Things getting a little bit feisty inside the top 10 here. Riding on board with Alexander Thiebe as he tries to work his way through towards the end of the race here. That's going to be one of the more obvious statements I've made in this particular championship. But he does have a teammate ahead of him. That's going to be Maxime Beneke, who's not had the best of events. We've covered that a couple of times already, but he's making good progress here in the feature race. Started 16th, he's up into P8, net gain of 8 positions there for him. Joshua Rogers still actually trying to make his way through on Mitchell de Jong, his teammate here, so definitely no team orders between the VRS and Sim Sports guys. Here comes Joshua Rogers then, inside line for Lecombe, but the thing is, can he make this pass complete? Will Mitchell de Jong fight it with all his might? Looks like he will, side by side through Lecombe then. That's going to be de Jong back on the inside, becomes the outside for Malmedy. Rogers trying to find some traction here on the exit of the corner. De Jong pushing wide a little bit, plays with fire in terms of the gravel on the outside, down in towards Rivage then. Both drivers giving each other a lot of space here in the middle of the corner, so a lot of respect given between the 2 teammates, but that is Rogers through.
Well, I think that's partially, between the 2 of them. They know that they're both now in a situation where they potentially might be involved with the stewards a bit more in the future, but Rogers is through. That's the important thing. But the thing is, though, between Josh Rogers and Sebastian Job with 7 minutes to go, it's 5.2 seconds. That moment, that situation that happened a lap ago with Graham Carroll and Mitchell de Jong, it stacked the field up and it allowed Sebastian Job to really get away and focus his attention back solely on Tommy Erskard, because earlier on I was going to say that Sebastian Job has got to be careful about fighting Tommy Erskard because it will bring the pack back together. Now it can be Tommy Erskard versus Sebastian Job. We could be looking here at Red Bull Racing Esports 1-2. I want to say hello to everyone watching, by the way, on the Red Bull Racing Esports Facebook page. It's so great to have the Porsche Esports Supercup on so many platforms, on Twitch TV, on YouTube Gaming, on Facebook Live across the world. So hello and thank you for welcoming us into your homes this Saturday afternoon. And of course, this season is just going to get better and better as well as the storylines and the plots continue to thicken. I will say though, last time around we talked about a magical defensive drive in terms of Martin Kroenke. What a fantastic defensive drive today by Patrick Holtzman in that number 27 machine.
I would hold that thought just for now, because Tommy Erskard hasn't really been close enough to be able to challenge your race leader. Holtzman has just been managing this gap between P1 and P2, which takes a whole different skill set of its own. I do agree, but now Østgaard going to be in the position here, not going to go for the dive bomb just yet in towards Lecombe. He has about 2.5 laps to try and make this pass work, but the thing is, he has his windshield full of Red Bull Racing Esports. He has his rear view and wing mirrors full of Red Bull Racing Esports as well. They'll definitely try to make his life hell. Østgaard, the lone survivor here at the front of this, well, the lone Coanda survivor, excuse me, in this particular battle for the podium positions. But the thing is, with 2.5 laps to go, he does have to get a move on if he wants to take the feature race win here today, and $1,000 in the bank as well.
Yes, indeed, sir. And of course, there are prizes as well. $500 for second place, $250 for third place driver as well. So each of these top 3 drivers are looking for a genuine cash payout for finishing on the podium in this feature race here today. That applies to every single round of the Porsche Esports Supercup here live on the iRacing Esports Network. It's worth noting, by the way, Max Benecke is involved in a battle with Jamie Fluke. This is for P number 7 on track right now. So it's Germany versus England once again. Just not in a football match. I'm not going to make any football references. For English teams in the European finals, but Jamie Fluke is having to defend pretty heavily actually, because Max Benecke's got a fantastic run, and he's not going to try and go down the inside in towards Davolo, is he? No, he's not.
No, not in the inside towards Blanchimont there either.
That's what I meant.
Maximum Benecke, there's been a bit of a situation behind them, but we'll stay with this battle because they're going side by side. Benecke down the inside of what is going to be the car of Jamie Fluke there, coming through the bus stop. Fluke will look for a line off the complex though. He's able to bring it relatively close on the way down towards La Source. Again, flashing of the lights, but we've had Job spin around from P3 in this race. He has to wait, and that is horrible there for the British driver. He has to wait so long to let all of these cars back through. Thankfully, the track is quite wide there on the historic pit straight, excuse me, so he's able to do so a little bit quicker than otherwise. But the thing is, that is an unforced error again from Sebastian Job. How many times have we seen it throughout this particular championship and the qualifying series as well? He has a habit of this. Just look at that.
Yep, there's a replay of Sebastian Job. Let's get ourselves another one, shall we, from up above. This is in towards La Source. No contact there. I just think he might have just had to brake, lock the wheels a little bit. Back end slips out. Yeah, it just slips out on the exit there. And he's lucky that he doesn't hit anything, but he just had to sit there and wait. And as a consequence, well, he's no longer going to be $250 richer. He's all the way down in P number 9. And earlier, Paul Smith, who's been acting as our stats guy for this race, was telling us that Job was set to gain 10 points over Joshua Rogers in this race. Now, Josh Rogers is in third place for Coanda Simsport. So the luck of the Australian drivers seems to strike once again. And now it's a Red Bull Racing Esports driver leading the way, yes, but behind you've now got 2 Coanda Simsports drivers. This is why this format works so well in so many ways, Connery, because anything can happen, and we still got ourselves one more lap to go after this.
Of course, people do still find that contentious, so you can see the views either way, but we'll just have to deal with the racing as it is right now. Coming up towards 2 minutes remaining in this event, so next time these guys head themselves to the start-finish line, that will be the start of the final lap then. So we still have this battle for the overall feature race win. Patrick Holtzman versus Tommy Østgaard, and now Østgaard, Sebastian Job behind him spinning, is actually gifted him an opportunity here because he's not going to be feeling any pressure from behind anymore. He can just focus on the car ahead of him. They'll come across the line. White flag going to be flying here, so that's the final lap of this race going to be at this one, and in towards La Source. Østgaard not going to be close enough. I think he's just got to size himself up for a move now, get that run up through Radion and make the pass complete coming up towards the Lecombe chicane. But the thing is, even if he gets that move complete, there are still opportunities later on in the lap for Patrick Holtzman to make his way by, the main one being down into the bus stop. You can just see Tommy Østgaard trying to get the good run out of Radion. He does have a pretty good one at that. You can see the weaving that Patrick Holtzman is doing, trying to break the draft. But here comes Østgaard then. Defensive inside line taken from Holtzman. Østgaard looking for a move around the outside. They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Østgaard outside line for Malmedy, and he gets the traction off the corner as well. He gets position, but this isn't over yet, Will.
It isn't, as they've got themselves half a lap still to go of this race. Tommy Østgaard then has got Koana Simsports into the race lead with half a lap to go. 35 seconds remaining now on the play clock as they head themselves down towards Puer for what will be the final time in this motor race. And well, now there is one more opportunity for Patrick Holtzman. It will likely be in towards the bus stop chicane. The World Championship Grand Prix Series, when it ran last year, had itself a fantastic, crazy finish. Are we going to see the same thing here today in the Porsche Esports Super Cup? The clock will expire in 5 seconds from now. In towards Stavolo they come. In towards Curva Paul Freire they come for the final time. There is confirmation. This is the final lap of the motor race, but I don't think Patrick Holtzman is anywhere near close enough. He might have just used those tyres a little bit too much, used everything he had to stay in that race lead. Tommy Østgaard waited until the very last opportunity to try and make a pass. It's going to be a big long back from here, but no, he's not. Patrick Holtzman taking the safe option and is going to settle for second position. But what that means is your winner here today is going to be Tommy Østgaard in your feature race, and he's going to make himself $1,000 richer as a consequence. Tommy Østgaard is your victor here in our feature race for VOS Koana Simsports, the Scandinavian driver. What a run! And somehow, from nowhere, Koana Simsports have won the first 3 rounds of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Crazy finish, Connery.
What a move from Tommy Østgaard with all that pressure on his shoulders as well. This is battling for a huge amount of points, and of course that $1,000 for a feature race win. Tommy Østgaard, a move outside line in towards Lecum. He's able to make it work. That is absolutely incredible. What a fantastic week that Tommy Østgaard has had, qualifying himself into the final of the Porsche Norwegian Championship, and of course a feature race win here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it is. We're just going to wait for the last couple of drivers then to come past the start-finish line before we run yourself through your final race results here from the feature race in the Porsche Esports Super Cup circuit. Spa-Francorchamps, well, it delivers like it always seems to do. It doesn't matter what form of racing it is, it always seems to throw up a curveball here and there. We had ourselves Sebastian Job, who looped his car around with just a handful of laps to go. We had ourselves Tommy Østgaard wait until the final lap of the race down at Lecum to try and make the pass. And then, well, we got Tommy Østgaard, who is your winner here today. Let's run yourself then through your race results from this, the feature race of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. And it is Tommy Østgaard for VRS Koana Simsports who claims himself victory by 6 tenths to a second over Patrick Holtzman and the Red Bull Racing Esports team. The podium is finished off by Joshua Rogers, who was lucky to inherit that podium position, but he's had himself some luck and some skill along the way here today. Great battles he had with his teammate Mitchell de Jong, who comes home in P number 4. One of your big movers of the day, that's Max Benecke. We didn't see too much of him, but he finishes P number 5 after all is said and done. Then P6 will go to Jack Sedgwick for Supercup in iRacing. Sebastian Job recovers from 9th place to claim 7th at the end, but he did lose a podium position and $250 by looping it. And another unforced error for the British Red Bull Racing Esports team driver. Jamie Fluke, P number 8, for Apex Racing Team. He's actually the highest Apex Racing Team driver of the day. We should not have been saying that a little bit earlier on, him being down all the way in P number 8. Gregor Hutu 9 for Team Redline, and Jeremy Bootaluke rounds out your top 10. Kevin Ellis Jr. then will come home in the 11th position for the Apex Racing Team. Bobby Zelensky in the 12th position for VOS Koanda Simsports, and Alexander Thieve for Pure Racing Team 13th. Moritz Lohner, the highest placed Williams Esports driver, in 14th. Peter Berriman for the Apex Racing Team rounds out your top 15. Then it's Williams, Sanchez, Kronke, Cholak and Hijla rounding out your top 20. There are the remainder of the results up on your screen for you right about now. And what a day it has been here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. We were about to talk at one point about the possibility of a Red Bull Racing Esports 1-2. We were going to talk about, for most of the race, at least having 2 Red Bull Racing Esports drivers on the podium. And then we ended up in a situation at the very end that Koanda Simsports get 2 drivers on the podium and they get one of their drivers winning the race once again. It seems to be that Koanda Simsports have the luck of the Porsche here, and we are actually going to have a chat with Tommy Erskard. We hope. Tommy, you're very loud.
Sorry, I'll change that.
Okay, so whilst we wait for Tommy, very quickly, I mean, Norwegian driver, you talked earlier on, Connery, about the fact that he had that experience working with Porsche, of course, in the Norwegian Championship. It seems to have paid off here in the final lap.
Yeah, definitely, and it was an absolutely incredible performance. Started P3 in this feature race, but was able to work his way up, and he had, like I said, a fantastic amount of pressure coming towards the end of that race. That was alleviated a little bit once Sebastian Job had his bit of a moment, and my word, he's had many moments throughout the years that we've been watching him, let's just say that well. But again, it's another unforced error that puts Sebastian Job out of contention, that just allowed Tommy to just set his sights on that carrot on the stick in front of him of Patrick Holtzman, and he was able to complete the move. And what can I say? Just incredible. Yeah, fantastic run, and well, Tommy Erskard, congratulations on winning this, then the 3rd round of the Porsche Esports Supercup here on the iRacing Esports Network. You left it until the very last moment. I have to ask, first of all, was that the game plan?
To be honest, not really. Well, obviously on the last lap I wanted to get by, but during the race I was just trying to drive as quick as I could and try to catch up to Patrick. But it was only until the last lap that I was really close enough to make a move, and boy, was it close.
Well, the racing here at Spa, we talked about it throughout the day. The fact that it started off in the late afternoon, it finished at dusk into the night. How did that affect the balance of that Koanda Simsports #1 car?
The car felt amazing during the whole stint, to be honest. I could brake really late compared to Patrick, and I just had a lot of traction all the time, so the car was planted and felt really good. So big thanks to the team for setting the car up for this week.
Well, the situation's been now 3 races in a row. Koanda Simsports have managed to get themselves victories in here. At any point in the first 25 minutes, did you actually believe that you could get the victory here, especially when you were battling out with Sebastian Job, who was right behind you as well?
Coming into this weekend, I've not had enough practice or pace in practice actually to feel anywhere near confident. So coming into the weekend, I thought that maybe a top 15 would have been really nice. So I was really surprised after the qualifying to be that far up. And then in the main race, I knew Mitchell, Josh, everyone behind would be really quick. But if we could get some gaps, then perhaps I could fight for the win in the end. And yeah, what can I say? Just, yeah, lost for words.
Well, next time out, it's another weekend, it's another race, it's another double set, or treble set even, shall we say, of opportunities to get yourself points. We go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is one of my favourite tracks in the world, to be honest, but it's a track which is very, very narrow at points. And of course, yes, you got the Wall of the Champions, but you've got so many danger points on that track as well. With the close quarter racing we've seen this season, are you worried about anything at all at that track?
I can't wait for it, to be honest. I love the track, and I like races like that. That's one of the things I've struggled with a bit at Spa, because you have all these off tracks sections where you can go just a little bit wide and you get an off track. If you do that at that track, you'll be penalized a lot harder, and I prefer it that way, to be honest. So I'm really looking forward to it, especially after this race.
Well, before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for that VRS Sim Sports team?
I have to thank Virtual Racing School, VTech Motorsport Parts, and SimQuip, and Andron Design, and of course you guys for having the awesome broadcast. And I also want to thank Neil Ridderford at iZone Drive Performance, who's helped me prepare mentally for this race.
Well, thank you very much. Tommy Erskard then finishing with the victory, and of course is now $1,000 richer as a consequence. We've got Joshua Rogers, who's, we'll say somehow, he finished on the podium currently after a mixture of hard driving and also a little bit of luck along the way. He stood by with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua Rogers, championship leader coming into this one, and championship leader coming out of it as well, and still a bit of a points buffer. Josh, it wasn't the race wins or the P1s, P2s that we perhaps have started to come to expect from you. No pressure, of course, but just to talk about that sprint race first of all, because it seemed like you were in a little bit of a roadblock there towards the bottom half of the top 10. Just take me through exactly what happened.
Yeah, for sure. Hey guys, I think in the sprint race, honestly, my main focus was just to try and stay as clean as possible. There was a few times, especially on lap 1, where I just conceded the position to Graham. I knew he was aggressive, so I didn't want to really force the issue too much. Thankfully, I was a little bit lucky with that incident that happened in Lacombe to gain some spots. But yeah, at the end of the day, mainly for me, it was just trying to keep it as clean as possible. I think might have to do something about my qualifying, but when you're coming through the field and in a series as close as this, it's not always easy to keep out of the accidents, but at the end of the day, in that sprint race, we tried to push forward as far as we could while keeping it clean, and I think P6 was about as much as we could have asked for in that one.
Yeah, it was then a great drive coming into that feature race as well, and you got yourself a podium, a surprise podium, it has to be said. At the end of that one, it seemed like the top 3 completely and utterly checked out from the rest of the field, but we had that late race moment with Sebastian Job spinning out, and promoted you up to P3, and, well, before that, Sebastian Job, second in the point standings, would have made the points margin at the front of the championship standings a little bit slimmer, but somehow now you have extended that advantage at the front. That's absolutely incredible. So you feeling comfortable with the points buffer being the way it is over the amount that you get for a sprint for a feature race win, if I get my words in the right order? It seems like you've had one of the most ideal starts to a season that one could imagine.
Yeah, I guess one could say that, but I think in a series like this, again, it's so close, anything can happen, so I think you can never become complacent and too comfortable with what you've got. Obviously, for me, now it's just a matter of trying to stay as consistent as possible. If it means I have to concede a few spots, that's perfectly fine. I think staying alive and finishing races in those kind of top 5, top 7 kind of regions is what's going to at the end of the day, gain points. There's a lot of times where you see some going hyper aggressive, and then obviously it will pay off, but it doesn't always pay off like that. So just trying to stay as consistent as I can and move from there, but can never become complacent with that points gap.
Yeah, with the opening couple of laps of these sorts of events, both in the sprint race and the feature race, it seems like everyone's going quite aggressive, at least in the early stages, and that is quite understandable, like as you said, because the field is so close, and the start is where you can make up a good couple of places with everyone going side by side and going off the racing circuit. But when it comes to next week, Josh, where we have Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, what is basically a street circuit, then that is going to be for one word, interesting, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think Montreal's always known for as the battle with the slowdowns. So I think as long as you just keep it clean and even drive 85% around there, it's going to make the world a difference in terms of finishing in a solid result. Or especially tonight, there was I think from kind of P4 back to P10 or something, there was a huge train. So, you imagine if there's a train like that at Montreal, you get a few seconds worth of a slowdown and you go from P4 all the way back to, P13. So it's going to be a race of attrition, that one, for sure. Trying to keep it nice and clean. And it's like you said, the street circuit, it's very, very narrow. And to put moves on, you're going to have to be quite ambitious. So we'll see how it goes. But with being a little bit like a supercar track, I think... I'm one that normally likes the curbs. I feel comfortable with them, so we'll see how we go. But just gonna go into that one with the same mindset as we came into this one, and just try and keep it as consistent as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or a thanks to for getting you into the position that you're in right now with that points buffer?
Yeah, for sure. As always, massive thank you to the guys over at Coanda Sim Sport. All the effort they put in this week, especially Mitchell in the car, really did a brilliant job. And ultimately, I like to hope that our results showed the effort that we put in. Massive thanks to our major sponsor, Virtual Racing School, for all their support, especially Peter and the crew over there. SimQuip, end-to-end design, obviously you guys for the broadcast, and massive congrats to Tommy on the win. That's brilliant for him, and hopefully we can keep this going into the next round.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant to see. That was Joshua Rogers, third place in the feature race, still the championship leader, heading our way into Montreal on the 25th of May. So a couple of weeks' time before we get another round of the Porsche Esports Supercup. But, I think this has just been a good day at the office for Josh. Not the most ideal situation, but I think he'll take it.
Sometimes that's all you need, a good day in the office, because actually you're not always going to have a great day at the office. Sometimes just pulling through, being able to put the virtual car to one side, take a walk, and sit back and relax is all you need. And actually, sometimes it's better than having a situation where you end up crashing. And so many drivers in this series already have had races thrown away either of their own accord or others' accords. It's one of these things. Getting podiums here, as I said, from day one, is what is going to get you championships. One person who didn't get a podium, unfortunately, here today is the driver of Mitchell de Jong. That's not Mitchell de Jong. That's Josh Rogers there. There you are. Mitchell de Jong. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm not too bad. It's been an interesting day for you once again, hasn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. In the end, the result was relatively okay for the circumstances that we had on the track. It was honestly just carnage. I didn't really know what to do. I tried to set someone up for a pass, and then, someone would look to the inside and you lose that run, and then you have to fight them. It's hard to find that line between being patient and being aggressive, especially on a track like this where, draft has such a huge effect on, moves. So, we got the little clip into turn one. That set us back pretty far. Would have been interested to see if we had kind of like slotted into that fourth or fifth spot early on to see where we would have ended up. Maybe join Tommy and Patrick and Sebi towards the end of the race, but that didn't really happen. So kind of had to fight with other cars and just make the best of it. We had that incident with Graham, which I hate that happened to him. We want some clean racing, and unfortunately that didn't really go well. So hate that happened for him. But yeah, in the end, we collected some points. Trying to be consistent. That's the best we can do. Mid-Ohio was a rough one for us, so we're just trying to bounce back.
Yeah, we're going to put the championship standings up on the left-hand side of your screen, and we're going to see the fact that you are still fifth place in the championship, 247 points. That puts you, and my maths is really bad, 121 points behind your teammate Josh Rogers. We've still got a long way to go in this championship. We're only 30% complete. But are you starting to worry about things like potential penalty points? Are you starting to worry about the attrition rate and the fact that you having to work to race through the field in this series at all?
To be honest, incident points I'm not too worried about. These incidents happen like we had today, and you'll collect points here and there just by simple mistakes. But we're relatively clean right now, so For me, that's not a worry on my mind. And it's this series is just going to be about consistently finishing well. As you can see by how Josh has been doing, he's been right up there every race, and you can see the points lead he has. So one bad result, like I had at Mid-Ohio, getting in that incident in lap 1, that really dropped me a lot of points. So we just keep trying to do our job and see where we end up in the end.
Yep. Next time out, we go back to North America. We go to Montreal, Quebec, and the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It's a track through which, as I said a moment ago to your teammate Josh Rogers, is very, very narrow at points. And of course, it's very easy to focus on one specific corner, but I actually want to think about that first sector in the sprint race. I mean, what are you going to do to survive?
Yeah, that's one that we need to put some thought into, and I've been avoiding that thought in my mind until this race was over. That's a crazy track for any type of racing. I have a feeling it should be a bit better racing wise than like we would see in the World Championship Series with F1 cars, just because we have a lot less parts to damage from a small contact. So but no doubt we're going to have crazy draft there. There's giant curbs that we need to probably sail the car off of. So we could see a lot of people hitting walls and sometimes getting slowdown penalties, and surviving lap 1 will be pretty important. So we'll see.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Mitchell. Before we let you go, shout out sponsors who gets it done for you.
Yeah, big thanks to all my teammates, all our other partners, Coanda Sim Sport, Red Bull Virtual Racing School, N1 Design, SimQuip, FeedTech, Joe Real Timing, and of course you guys, RaceSpot, for putting on the broadcast.
Well, thank you very much there, Mitchell de Jong for VOS Coanda Sim Sports. Going to leave that championship graphic up for just a moment, Connery, because Josh Rogers, well, he's actually been able to increase his lead now to 108 points over Patrick Holtzman, who had a fantastic haul here today. And that's kind of what I was talking about. When it was the opportunity for Patrick Holtzman to maybe sling one on the outside down at the bus stop chicane on the final lap, he was thinking about the championship. As a consequence, even though Tommy Erskine beat him in the race, Patrick Holtzman is second place in the championship thanks to what he's done this weekend.
Absolutely, and you look at the championship standings, you say, okay, Joshua Rogers has 108 points buffer, but the thing is, there are no drop weeks in this series. There's no weeks that don't count, as is traditional in some of the official iRacing stuff. Every week is worth the same as every other one, so if Rogers has a bad feature race, for example, where he crashes out over the next couple of races, then that does bring Patrick Holtzman, Erskine, Job, de Jong all the way back into this. So just because it's seemingly like Joshua Rogers is running away with it at this stage doesn't mean that he'll take the championship by any easy means. He just has to keep it on the grey stuff, not step a foot out of line, and he should be good. But that one messed up race might just spell the end.
Yep, and next time out, it is going to be Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Unfortunately, it's neither going to be you or me here for that one. I'm actually in Canada. I'm in sunny Toronto. So if anyone lives in Toronto, wants to lend me a microphone, please do let me know. But Paul Matthew Smith will be back, I believe, with Randy Chineth for that one. But the key thing to note about Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and I say, we talked about first sectors all season long. I talked about the first sector at the Mid-Ohio sports car course. It's going to be even crazier than that because you have that left into the right, which in the years gone by in Formula One has had so many incidents. I remember Jean Alesi being up in his roof at one point. Then you've got yourself a very short run where the track narrows down into the first chicane, and it is almost too wide through there. I say the word almost because you've got two thick walls on either side. Of course, that's where Olivier Panis once broke both his legs in a crash when you had a big situation like that. And realistically, it's almost if you need to have a safety car until you get themselves to about the end of the second chicane.
I mean, the safety car is a Porsche for the all of iRacing on the roadside. Despite the automatic safety car not being a thing on the roadside of things, it can be called manually, but I don't think we'll get to see that, unfortunately, from the iRacing officials. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a race of attrition, it has to be said, next time around. It's definitely not going to lie about that one. It's going to be survival of the fittest, and whoever survives the best, arguably, is going to come away with a very, very good finish indeed. But we still got a couple of weeks' time before that one happens, and well, coming into the midpoint of the season after that, that's when things are going to start to shape up in terms of the championship contenders coming towards the final rounds of the season. But we're fully underway here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. We've had some fantastic racing. We had that last lap pass from Tommy Østgaard in this one, which was absolutely brilliant indeed. Could be a sign of more things to come as well.
Yeah, of course, next Saturday it is going to be a stacked doubleheader with the next round of the VRS GT iRacing World Championship, as well as the greatest spectacle in all of sim racing. It is the 10th running of the iRacing Indy 500, and if any Indy 500 in the past has been to go by, it's going to be crazy. By the way, that race has never ended under caution in the broadcast race. Just going to tell you that one now. That, however, is all we've got time for here from the third round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. I want to say thank you as ever to Isran Balau, TrackCams22.com, as well as And One Design and the guys over at Aptioneering. The IN80VO is what we call him, Simon Grossman, and also to Nick Thiston for Esports TV, live timing and scoring. Well, Spa lived up to its name once again. It's one of the most famous racetracks in the world, and it proved to be a spectacle one more time. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be heading ourselves over to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and if you think the racing's been crazy so far, who knows what will happen when we head ourselves next to the Olympic rowing basing from the 1988 Olympics. Who knows what's going to happen when we say, well, I've forgotten exactly what I was going to say in my ending there. So what I am going to say is who knows what's going to happen when we head ourselves over to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. They were the words I was looking for. Thank you to Paul Smith for doing some work, even though he's not got any voice. Thank you to Connery Maddock. I've been Will Vincent. Good night from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps.